Hey Internet, I'm Chaz.
And I'm Dan. Welcome to Wine is Serious Business, episode 236. We're here today with another guest from Germany. We're so fortunate to have Andreas Resch here today with a lineup of his wines. And I guess why don't you just take a minute to introduce yourself and tell us what you love about growing wine in Germany.
Okay. Well, I'm Andreas Resch. I'm coming from Germany, and I'm very pleased about that I have the possibility to have a nice evening together with these two guys here. But I also want to say that I'm a guest from Olga and Barnaby Tuttle here in Oregon, and we want to present you the wines from my winery. I'm coming from Germany, from the most western part of Germany. It's the Saar region, south of Trier. And the typically varieties we have, that is especially Riesling. 80% of our surface is Riesling, 10% is Pinot Noir, and the other 10% is 5% Chardonnay and 5% Pinot Blanc.
Okay.
And I'm the 5th generation in our winery, and well, I try to do as good as possible. And this evening I think we shall taste 4 different products from me. On the left from your side, it's sparkling I produce.
Let's go ahead and start pouring it.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Oh, I was just saying, I'll go ahead and start pouring it for us so we can get into tasting it. Yeah.
It is a cuvée we call cuvée Anna Lioba. These are the 2 pre-names from my grandmother. And on the top of the label you see also a picture from her, from our family album.
Oh, nice.
And Anna Lioba, these are the 2 pre-names from my grandmother. Anna, everybody knows, a pre-name for a girl. Lioba is a very, very old German girl's name.
Okay.
And she started the business in 1873. And I thought there was such a strong, great lady that she started with 2 sons and 1 daughter the business by herself, because her husband died a year before.
Wow.
She was such a powerful person that I said, well, as homage to this great lady, my grandmother, I said, well, I make a sparkling for her.
Nice.
And this sparkling, the cuvée Anna Lioba, is always a cuvée of, in the majority, Pinot Noir, and then Chardonnay and Pinot Blanc. In this special case, it's a cuvée of 60% Chardonnay and 60% Pinot Noir and 40% Chardonnay. There is no Pinot Blanc in, because I tasted this before and said this is the really best cuvée what is possible. Well,
Excellent.
Cheers.
Nice.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks for coming on the show with us.
Thank you.
This will be fun. So, I want to say I've had this wine a few times in the past, previous vintages of it or previous versions of this wine, and really enjoyed it. So it's been one I've looked out for on the market, and makes it to Portland in a decent quantity. So.
And what you see, the color is a light rosé.
Yes.
It comes from the Pinot Noir. And when you smell on this champagne, it's a smell of cherries and red fruits. And so this champagne will fit perfectly to accompany lobster, gambas, salmon, if it is smoked salmon or boiled salmon,
Oh yeah, easily.
or pochette salmon, or graved lachs, like the Scandinavians say.
Sure.
So it makes a lot of fun to drink this champagne also as a partner to a meal. Very often sparklings or champagnes are only open for birthday parties or New Year's Eve or something like this.
Right.
But I
Celebratory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I had the big amusement to make some stages at the Champagne area.
Oh, wow.
I made the first one at Mum.
Okay.
Yeah, very good.
In Reims, in the Champagne.
Nice.
1 year later, I made a stage of, again, half a year in a small family-run business in Vercy. It's a small village in the Montagne du Reims.
Okay.
And there I learned everything from the beginning just to the end. And everything in this family-run company was made by hand. So I learned much of
Fantastic.
producing a sparkling à la méthode champenoise. Yes.
Right.
And so this is our first product we want to present this evening.
And is sparkling wine also a special occasion wine in the Saar?
Yes.
Or is it more, okay.
Yes, this is a very interesting question because the wines from the Saar are very, very intensively requested by big sparkling wine producing companies in Germany, because they are full of minerals and they are very, very fruity. They have a very interesting acidity, a fine acidity, and that is a super basis to produce a very good sparkling wine. And the history of producing sparkling wines with basic Saar wines, that has a history of more than 150 years.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I really like how the flavors here have like a little bit of earthy character, and the fruit seems like very full and ripe, but without being too heavy. I think the minerality and the acidity keeps things really nice and clean on the palate, but there's still a good sense of depth with the fruit that lasts.
I agree.
But as I say, this cuvée is 60% Pinot Noir and 40% Chardonnay. But the cuvée depends always how the single components are structured. As I said, the main component is always Pinot Noir. But in the years 2007, 2009 and 2011, the Pinot Noir was so opulent that I said, well, I have to reduce a little bit the quantity of Pinot Noir, and I take a little more of Chardonnay and a little more of Pinot Blanc in this cuvée to make it a little fresher, to make it a little more fruity and not too opulent.
What vintage year was this?
Yeah.
This
11
year,
or
this
9?
year, no, this year is a cuvée of 2010 and 2011.
10 and 11. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
The 10-11, that is the Chardonnay, and the 2010, that's the Pinot Noir. Because the 2011 Chardonnay, that was so wonderful fruity that I said, this is the ideal partner for the 2010 Pinot Noir.
Wow.
And so it can be that the blend, this cuvée, can also be 50% Pinot Noir, 30% Chardonnay, and 20% Pinot Blanc.
Okay.
Cool.
So I will always adapt these single components to an optimum of balanced end product.
And that was pulled off well here, I think. I mean, there's very good balance to Dan was talking about the rightness of the flavors. There's good freshness alongside that with the way the acidity kind of comes in with the fruit flavors. Reminds me sort of like I agree with the red fruit, like maybe like hints of strawberry, a little bit of watermelon too on the nose.
So yes, absolutely.
Just a little bit of that, and then
The
like
watermelon comes from the Chardonnay.
I think it does.
Cool.
Huh. Yeah, I mean it's a very interesting series of flavors. Very good. So.
But the only that now, I miss these are the gambas, aren't we? We have to have the gambas here to
I wish, yeah.
accompany this to the champagne.
Yeah.
Well, I think that gets missed a lot of times with champagne. You were alluding to that earlier. Champagne and sparkling wine in general is a wonderful food wine. I mean, and a lot of people just use it for celebration. I think it goes with pretty much everything.
Absolutely.
You know? It literally stands up to almost any food.
One of the most universal wines.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely.
So if you don't know what to order on a list and you got some food and you just don't know what to pair it with, just get something sparkling.
That's right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
And I guess we'll move on to doing a rinse with the next wine, but as we're doing that, it was another story about this that I wanted to share. Olga was telling me that the region has a lot of French influence. The Saar has a lot of French influence.
Oh, yes.
And that was like where the Pinot Noir and Chardonnay plantings and kind of mindset around that came from. And do you feel like especially the Pinot Noir and the Chardonnay, do you feel like they're farmed differently than they are in the rest of the Mosel? Due to that history, or is it about the same?
Yes, no.
Okay.
We have to say something about the historical dimension our region had in the past. We were from the late 8th century. We were French. That means our dukes were the Dukes of Burgundy. They have their castle, their capital in Dijon. And in between we were also a part of Luxembourg, and these were the dukes, the later great dukes of Luxembourg. And we had a history over about 1,000 years being French and Luxembourgish. And after 1815, Napoleon had lost all his wars at Waterloo, the last one, we got German. So, and the people from our region were not really amused to have Germans.
Yeah.
But after now nearly 200 years, it's okay. But coming back to your question, till it was 1780, something around this, our region was nearly 100% Pinot Noir growing region.
That's incredible to think
Yes,
about.
and not Riesling.
Yeah.
And the Bishop of Trier, Wenceslaus, he brought out a law that after 1780, we only have the right to plant Riesling vines in our region.
So about as long as the United States has existed.
That's a good point to bring up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And about this decision from this Bishop Wenceslaus in these former days, we are more than pleased, because we have a huge luck that he, the bishop, has chosen the Riesling, because the Riesling, our slate, soil and our microclimates produce really the very most interesting Rieslings in the world.
I agree.
Totally agree.
And when you read a lot of books, a lot of wine atlas about German wines, about German Rieslings, you will see that a lot of very, very important and wise wine authors wrote big books about the Saar and the Saar Riesling. And one of them said, after he had a longer stay at the Moselle and the Saar, and he has tasted hundreds of wines over a period of time of more than half a year, he came to the conclusion that, that's very funny, he said, after tasting so many wines at the Moselle and at the Saar, he has the impression that the Saar is the small but the noble appendix from the Moselle. And I think that's funny, isn't it?
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's well said.
Well, and the first wine we are tasting now, that is a 2012 Wiltinger Klosterberg Riesling Kabinett Trocken.
Awesome. So that was a rinse. Do you want to want me to pour the whole thing for you now, or also?
Oh, we rinse with a little bit.
You have to rinse the glass, but
What is something very important is that we are very ambitious to produce natural wines.
Okay.
Yeah.
You hear so often, yes, I produce natural wines and ecologic and blah blah. For me, it's important. It's a question of an honest philosophy.
Okay.
My philosophy is very easy. Only when you have a healthy soil on or in this soil can grow a healthy plant, a wine in this case. When you have a healthy wine, they can bring healthy fruit, and out of a healthy fruit you can produce a clear and fine wine, and that's all. And we have a responsibility against nature, the environment, but I have also responsibility about my children. I have two sons, and we make no pressure to one of them to overtake the business. But if one of those both want to go further on with the business, with the winery, with winemaking, he should find a soil and a winery that is healthy,
Right.
where you have a big diversion of plants in between the vines, so that you don't make a monoculture. And I think we are on the best way when we are looking here around Oregon and Portland, and we are reading articles in German newspapers about this place.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, there was a very big article in a magazine in Germany that was, the name is Saison.
Okay.
And this was an age-paid article about Portland and its surrounding with wonderful photographies.
Wow.
And they say, well, it's hip. Everybody us know that it's hip. But here's also a green thinking in the population, yes, and that is so healthy because we have to think further in the future. And now coming back to the wine, I want to produce natural wine. That means that the impacts from me into nature should reduce to an absolute minimum. The impact also from chemistry has to reduce to an absolute minimum. Important is the context and the dialogue with nature. Yes. And we first have to understand how nature works, and then we can work together with nature. And when we think we can work, money making in the background, against nature, then we have not only lost the battle, we have lost the war. So we have to work like this with nature, and then nature gives us free house such a gift.
Yeah.
We can taste, we can drink, and we can enjoy together with friends and find food. And that is also important for me, that we should have to enjoy the most wine with food, and food with wine. I'm since 9 years a member of Slow Food Germany, and you know Slow Food is a free organization that is worldwide acting, and the responsibility for good nutrition, responsibility for natural resources we should save, we should protect, that is so important. And now, this was something about our philosophy coming to this wine. This here is a very light, dry Riesling from the Klosterberg side. It has 10.5 volume% alcohol, and that is my ambition to produce wines with a low alcohol content.
Okay.
The wines all over the world are increasing since 10 up to 15 years in the alcohol content. They are getting bigger and bigger and fatter and fatter and fatter.
Right.
You have a 30%, 30.5% of alcohol and more, and I can't understand why some of my colleagues are doing this. First, you have the quality in the grape itself coming out from the vineyard. And when there is density, when there is a good texture, when there is a balance of fruit, of acidity, and a bunch of fruitiness and flavor, then we don't need a lot or too much alcohol. Then a 10.5 or 11.5 is normally enough.
Agreed.
And this wine here, for example, will accompany very good seafood platter, mussels, oysters, white meat.
Easily, yeah.
Yes, that's a wonderful, and then nice, chilled, good weather like here in Portland in the moment, sitting in the garden, drinking a wine like this, having a good meal together with friends, with people. That's the best what can happen.
Yes.
As I said today to Barnaby, this is like being very close to paradise.
It's wonderful, and I think I love the scents that come on the nose here. I think there's like a really, I guess it's not a heavy scent, but it's like a full, like kind of like melon flavor, or like very good fruity notes showing on the nose. And what you were saying about how a lot of winemakers seem to have more and more alcohol, especially when dealing with, trying to make up for something missing in the fruit. I feel like in Germany, in German Riesling, there's a risk of people using more and more sugar to try and compensate for missing flavors too. And I feel like I'm usually less fond of Trocken wines, because I think in some ways more truth comes out there, right? Like you can't hide behind sugar.
Absolutely.
And and I'm always impressed when I get that kind of like depth of fruit and that sense of clarity in a Trocken wine. Yeah.
But what you also smell and taste in the case of this wine, that is something like this surface of this table. It's a slate. It's in our case we have gray slate or a blue slate, and sometimes also a red slate, where some iron particles are in, therefore the red color. Here in this case it's a gray slate, nearly like this surface of this table.
Sure.
And you taste and you also smell how much minerals are in the wine. It's a very mineral, tasty wine. And when you have, as I said, to this some sea fish, some oysters, some mussels, that goes really good.
And it's refreshing. I think you can
Yes,
just drink,
Very refreshing, yeah.
drink a glass.
I do sense the minerality on the finish, and again with the acid is very well complemented to the fruit on the palate. And like Dan said with the nose, there's like a whole bouquet of different fruit flavors that are going on in the nose. And this, I also feel about very much the same way Dan felt about that. I think a lot of Rieslings could hide behind sugar, and so struggled with Trocken Rieslings early on. But as I've come to know these wines or drink more of these wines, I've really, the good ones that are, the ones that are good really stand out. So.
And the best wine can do is to entertain us.
Yeah.
A good wine has to be an entertainer of a whole evening.
I love that. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And
And that happens. It does happen amongst wine groups. It's so fun. That's what's fun about these beverages. They really bring so people together,
Absolutely.
right? So.
Wine has a social aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is so interesting. When you're coming late in the evening back home and you have worked a lot and everybody's in bed and sleeping, then you can open a can of beer and drink, and then you go also in bed. But when you came at such a situation, you came home, everybody's sleeping and everybody's tired, you too are tired, just coming home in the moment.
Yeah.
You never ever come to the idea to open a bottle of wine and drink it.
I agree. Yeah.
You need at least a second person or a third, the best group of them, and having fun together. Therefore I said wine is a social product. Yes. You need other people to enjoy it the very most.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, drinking wine alone is not near as fun as drinking wine with other people. So, so I totally agree in that. But yeah, this is a very delicious wine. I actually need to put more in my glass.
Okay.
But I think we get to the next one.
Yeah, let's go on to the next one. Yeah,
That sounds good. That's
After this, we can.
Sounds good.
Let's
Okay.
get back to
But
also.
the next one is a very interesting wine. This is not a dry wine.
Big rinse. Yeah.
It's Riesling. You can
Let's go for it?
Yes, you
All
can
right.
forward, no
Let's
problem.
go for it.
Okay.
This one is coming from the Wiltinger Schlangengraben. Schlangengraben, that means, directly translated into the English language, Snake Valley. What a name in the English language.
Yeah,
In
absolutely.
German, it's not as dramatic like in the English language, but Schlange, that is snake, and Graben, that is something like valley.
Okay.
To this one I want to say something. It has first, again, 10.5 volume% alcohol.
Okay.
It has something about 8.5 gram per liter acidity. The former, the dry Riesling, has 8 gram residual sugar and 8 gram acidity. So we have here at the second wine nearly the double of residual sugar, but nearly the same of acidity. And as we tasted this, there was a light citrus, a lemon acidity, very fruity, very vivid.
But delicate too. I mean, like,
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And this here is a fine herb Kabinett. In former times, we said to wines like this with this residual sugar, it's something like halbtrocken.
Yeah.
But halbtrocken, that halb means half. And we have a big problem, and I especially, a big problem with the word half. When you, for example, have a salesman for cars.
Okay.
Yes, and there comes a person who's interested in buying a car. He said, well, I have half a Honda Civic. This interested person would say, half a Honda Civic, half a car, what should I do with half a car? Therefore, this old-fashioned halbtrocken, half dry. Well, what is half? It's not half fish, it's not half meat, it's nothing.
Which half is it?
Yeah, woodshop. And therefore I said, it started in 2002. A colleague of mine has won a struggle for court. And he has won it.
Okay.
Because they said the word fine hair as a declaration or a description for the taste of wine is a really good, and it's a very old description. That means fine hair, that it is not really dry, but it is also not sweet. Means it is a light sweet, but from the tannins and dry wine. Therefore, with the 16 gram per liter, a very, very slightly sweet wine, but extremely fresh. But now, before we taste, I want to say something about this word here in this corner of the label.
Oh, yes.
The name is Newton. The name Newton printed on the label does give us some hints about the production. It was a coincidence. It was the year 1999. It was a wonderful year for Wiltinger and the Saar region. Wonderful grapes. We had a lot of sugar in the grapes and a lot of fine acidity. And it was a year where the skin of the grapes were very, very thin. And so, as I told a minute ago, we take all the grapes we harvest by hand into this container. We have something about 4,000 kilo in this container, and the upper half of 2,000 kilo presses the lower half because they have a weight.
Right.
And so the juice, the free flow juice, we collect and we start this in the fermentation. Important is therefore that the grapes are not scrambled and that they are not pressed by our mechanical press. This juice has a very, very low content of tannins.
Okay. Yeah.
And these tannins normally protect normally produced wines against oxidation and eldering.
Okay.
So, and when these Newton wines are ready for bottling, you can drink them just after bottling. They don't need a long time to present themselves, to bring themselves into a balance. No, they are directly drinkable. They don't know bottle sickness. You know, this.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But
One would be closed, like it won't
yes,
present
exactly.
itself.
They are absolutely present. They are not closed. But I have also to say, because these Newton wines don't have these quantity of tannins that is normal, they should have been drunken in the first 2 up to 3 years after bottling. They are not wines that have a huge future, a huge perspective in the future. They are for drinking just now.
Interesting.
Yes, and that is the.
What happens when you age them? Have you tried aging?
Yes, we had tried. We had made tests about it, and then they're getting flatter and flatter. But in the first 2 up to 3 years, they make so much fun. Really fun. And now, when we taste it and when we smell it, we recognize that it's a different type of wine than the former, than the dry Riesling Kabinett Selektion.
Big time.
I definitely get more peach scents on the nose than I didn't from the previous one.
Yes, a lot of
And
yellow,
fresh apple.
yellow fruits. You smell mirabelles, yes, and a little lemon, a little apple, as you said.
Yeah.
And this wine,
Bright and fresh. I mean,
yes,
So.
yes, and this wine accompanies, for example, very, very good Asian food, where you have spices in, where it has sharpness in of the spices like ingwer, like curries, chilies, and when a dish like an Asian kitchen is a little sharp, a little spicy, then the dry ones like the former, they have a little problem to balance it. Yes, and when you have Asian food, or you have, for example, a langoustine in olive oil, some garlic in, and then some pepperoni in, and you store this overnight in the fridge, and next day you make it on the grill, make a barbecue of it. This fits perfectly.
Riesling as a marinade.
You can marry it before or during the meal.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, sweeter or off-dry Rieslings to me with Asian foods was something of a revelation when I first started getting into wine, and it's still a favorite of mine. Something I do all the time, right? So as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
What is your of the world's cuisine? What is your favorite spicy food?
Oh, Dan, it's a difficult question.
Yes.
There are so many wonderful spicy foods in the world. I love seafoods. I love seafood very much with gambas or langostinos or what is lovely, that is, for example, gratinated scallops.
Yeah, scallops are great.
That's absolutely great. And you also can do this with a little saffron and small files of very slim cutted pepperoni. That's great. And with such a wine to accompany such a scallop, that's great theater.
So I mean, the flavors to me sort of speak to like young peaches. Lemons are very strong here, especially carrying into the finish. Maybe some young green apple, a little bit in the mid palate. But again, the way the uptake of acidity in the finish is just absolutely wonderful. There's great texture provided by that little bit of sugar, adds a little more depth. This is in a really nice place right now, like you were saying. Like, it's very fresh and just easy to drink. This is truly
We
wonderful.
had this afternoon a wine tasting. There was a young lady tasted this wine and said, "Oh, this is like, when I drink it, this is like a butterfly is dancing on my tongue." That's nice.
Yes.
I loved it. Nearly, I loved also she, but no, wonderful. It was a wonderful saying, yes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we like to do as natural wine producers in totally conviction, like wines, entertaining wines, wines that make such a fun to drink, and then a fine meal, a fine dish to it. That's great. That makes fun.
Yeah, it is so bright and clear. It's just really, has a delicate sense to it and great flavors, and it's a lot of fun.
Really wonderful wine. That's good. I had a question, legal, so I guess we'll speak about the fourth wine, the final wine we're going to do. But I had a question about the 2012 vintage and what your thoughts on it were. Just because it's gotten a lot of praise from people here. Like everyone I know that's a Riesling lover, a German wine lover, has spoken very highly of 2012. That it was a great season to grow grapes.
Yes.
So
the quantity we could harvest was not big. That was the only negative aspect about 2012. But for somebody who really likes Riesling, who likes the fruit of Riesling, who likes the minerals of the Riesling, the 2012 was a vintage par excellence.
okay.
It was a very pronounced acidity, but a fine acidity, not too harsh, not too intensive. Lots of minerals are in the 2012 Rieslings because we had the summer over, we had enough rain. And when you don't have enough rain, not we, the vines, then you don't have this fine acidity that brings the very special item on it. That means
So like fall rains or like midsummer rains?
midsummer rains.
Midsummer
Rains, and then we came into a very warm but dry autumn weather, and that was perfect.
Right, that's what you want to happen.
And that what our Rieslings like the very most is hot days and cold nights. And you know what Barnaby says about the wines he produces here in Oregon. Yes, he says these cold climates in the harvest that produces these very special aroma situation, and this is exactly what 2012 happens in our place, that we have 28 degrees Celsius, that is something about nearly 90% Fahrenheit, a degree Fahrenheit, and then it cools down quite intensively in the night. In the morning we had in our valley, we had always this mist, this fog, and the fog rises after about 9:30 up to 10:30 in the morning, and then whoop, the sun was there, blue sky,
Mhm.
and then the Riesling is in its element. Then he can produce this aroma and also is increasing the sugar production in this grape, and it was ideal for the Riesling. And therefore,
Fantastic.
212 was a very, very good vintage. Well, the quantity we could harvest, not only me, all the other colleagues also, was something about 30 up to 35% under the average. But
Oh.
well,
Wow, that's, yeah.
it's like
Why
this.
was it so low?
It was in 90% of the case, it was a problem with the blossom.
It was a cold spring.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly.
Okay,
We had a
yeah.
cold spring, and that was not so nice. But nevertheless,
Yeah.
Happy to have these wines.
Turned out
Yes.
some wonderful
And this
fruit.
last one here is coming from a very, very special slope. It's the so-called Scharzhofberger. For English tongues, a word that is not very sympathetic, I know, but it is like it is. And when you look at the label, here you have Wiltinger, Klosterberg, Wiltinger, Schlangengraben. Wiltinger is the name of our village. But this is such a special slope there. It's not necessary to write the name of the village in front of the slope.
Okay.
This is only 2012 Scharzhofberger Riesling. In this case, it's the Riesling Spätlese Feinherr. And this one has only 11.0 alcohol. It's also from its alcohol content really a light wine, but from its taste, it's really everything but not light. It has a very intense texture, and there are quite a lot of wine journalists who visited the Saar and tasted dozens and dozens of wines, and they all say, you can read it, it was Jancis Robinson from England, it was Hugh Johnson from England, it is Parker and all those guys, they say, this Scharzhofberger is a dimension for itself. We have so many very good sites in the Saar Valley that it is nearly unbelievable why, especially the wines from this from the surface, not very big site are so different. When they are very young, they are closed. They need time, they need really time to develop in the bottle. And after 2 up to 3 years after bottling, they are expanding like this. They are really growing and growing and growing and growing. And then it's such a pleasure to drink.
It's like watching your children grow up, I guess, right?
Yes,
Like, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, take the smell and then make your own impression.
I get some sense of minerality here as well, and like a more floral nose, I think,
I was
Yes,
gonna say
than
the
the
same
previous
thing.
wines.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But very intense.
Mm-hmm.
Very. There's a little touch of peachiness to it. There's like it's like you get sort of like a melon and a peachiness, but like someone squeezed a lemon all over the top of it, right? Like
yeah.
there's a sense of citrus on the nose as well. Yeah, I mean,
It's really like sticking your nose into a bouquet of flowers. It really is.
there is
Yeah.
a big floral sense to this, like almost like lilies or something. It's very strong and yeah, it smells wonderful. But and textured wonderfully.
Very dense, isn't it?
Very dense. That's what first drew me to German wines in the first place, was their density. The good ones are just so dense and so layered in the way that they interact with the tongue. It's just amazing. And this is an example of that.
And great length, I think, too. I think
Yes.
it slowly fades onto the palate, and you're getting like some of these peach flavors again. A good sense of depth without it ever being too heavy. It's just very full, but all the impressions you get are very, very precise, and very delicate all the way across.
But this, I repeat again for everybody who looks this,
Yeah.
only 11.0 alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And this wine would lost a lot of elegance, a lot of finesse if there would be more alcohol on it.
Right.
Sure.
This alcohol, this plus of potential alcohol would would overlap with elegance. It
Right.
would be broad, it would be fat, and at the final I only want to say what we wanted to have. We want to have prima ballerina in our bottles and not sumo wrestler.
I think that's very consistent across the three that we've tasted too.
Yes, absolutely.
They all have a very delicate sense to them that even among wines that I like, of course, I think everybody's had wines that are too high in alcohol
Of course.
or unbalanced in sugar. But I think sometimes in with the dry wines too, you can get some very much like lemon peel bitterness or astringency. And I don't know if that's too much contact with the skin or what it is, but and that can even bring out more alcohol, and none of that's going on here, right? This is all very clean and balanced and very very well integrated for being young wines as well. I think.
So I had one question. So you are fifth generation winemaker?
Yes.
And someone who obviously the winery was there, and you were raised in a family into it. When was it that you knew you loved wine? Like, I know it's kind of different. Like for us, I came to this very late in life. Like it happened sort of suddenly. I wasn't surrounded by it, but it's always interesting to me for winemakers that were generationally born into it. Like when did you discover really love wine?
It's the same with my sons, or our sons, and my sons, the sons of my wife and me. And they just helped us in the vineyards, bottling and all this in the age of 10, 11, 12 years. Half an hour here, an hour there, and then it expands. The same I made when I was so young. And when I was in the youth, I tasted here and there wine. But really, I felt in love to wine when I was significant older than 20.
Okay.
And then eating was not only any longer eating. Eating was changing in the direction of enjoying food.
Sure.
And it's a question of personal development, and
Totally.
you need quite a ripeness. You have to be a little more major in mind, that you understand that food is not only food, that it's pleasure. And then, step by step, while I was developing my food love, I get in the real contact to wine. Then I saw how my parents enjoyed the evening meal. They had their fine cooked meal by my mother, and there was a glass of dry Riesling accompany this evening meal. And so it developed step by step, and I would say when I was 24, when I get in a real contact to my girlfriend, which I later on married and had two wonderful children with her, she likes to cook.
Oh, nice.
And then we both developed us and our cooking, and we tried a lot of things in the kitchen. And then we said, well, which wine should we take to which to which meal, to which course? And so it was a development step by step. We didn't have a schedule. When you're 36, you have to cook this and drink this wine.
Right.
It was a natural development, and I would say, well, to answer your question so precisely as possible, I was something about 23, 24, 25. But then I developed rapidly, and my girlfriend, meanwhile my wife on my side, we developed further on. We made a lot of holidays and trips to France, to Switzerland, to Italy, exploring other wine regions, learning a lot from other colleagues, and getting in contact with other philosophies, with other wine cultures, other mentalities, and therefore it's so great being here in Portland in June 2014 to research and to find and to look at new places that makes it so it's so colorful life.
It's such a fun wine region here. I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the best is, and I think heaven wants it, that I get in contact with Olga and Barnaby, and these are brothers in mind, or sisters in mind, how to see.
Yeah.
And what was so funny, it is 2 days ago, Barnaby said to a person we had visited, Andreas Resch and me, we are doppelganger. That was so funny. That was so funny because I thought doppelganger, that's a typical German word.
Yeah.
I didn't know that anybody outside of Germany knows the word doppelganger. But obviously it's a status here for brothers in mind.
Yes.
And
Very much so.
I
can see that, guys, a bit through your wines too.
Yes.
I mean,
I only can thank Olga and Barnaby for this chance I have here to speak here and to have my fun together with you.
yeah.
And I hope that we only can bring something forward, the love to wine, the love to good food, how the French say, le joie de vivre.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not familiar.
Die Freude am Leben, the joy of life.
Ah. Here's to that.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers.